The envelope had been sitting on my kitchen counter for 3 days before I finally opened it. The handwriting on the front was unmistakable, crooked, deliberate, and trembling. My father's hand. A man I hadn't spoken to in over 20 years. I had sworn I never would. Yet here it was, this fragile letter, pulling at a wound I thought had long healed, but hadn't. The first line stopped me cold. Son, if you're reading this, it means I don't have much time left. My chest tightened. The anger that had fueled my silence all those years rose again, but it was mixed now with something else. Fear. Maybe even sorrow. I sat down, letter trembling in my hands. The room suddenly far too quiet. We had parted on a night that I replayed too often in my mind. His words sharp, mine sharper. I had stormed out of the house at 20, swearing never to come back. He didn't chase after me. That silence became a canyon between us, one that stretched wider with each year, each missed holiday, each unanswered phone call. In his letter, he wrote of the small farm he still kept, though his body was failing. He wrote of the regrets that haunted him, the birthdays missed, the grandchildren he had never met, the pride he never spoke aloud. I was too stubborn to say I was wrong, he admitted. But I was. The words blurred through my tears. I remembered my father as a man of iron. His voice carried weight, his back never bent, his hands calloused from years of work. But beneath that hardness, I knew, at least as a boy, I had once felt his love. A hand on my shoulder after a baseball game. The smell of sawdust as he built me a treehouse. Those memories drifted back now, uninvited, warm and painful, all at once. The letter ended with a plea. If you can, come see me. If you can't, know that I always loved you, even when I didn't say it right. I folded the paper carefully, sat in silence, and stared at the wall. For 2 decades, I had carried the weight of anger like a shield, and yet, in that moment, it felt so heavy, so useless. I drove through the night, the road stretching endlessly, headlights carving through the darkness. Every mile carried me closer to a man I wasn't sure I forgave. But every mile also peeled away the layers of bitterness I had wrapped around my heart. The moon hung low, and I thought of how time, so steady, so merciless, takes everything from us if we wait too long. When I pulled into the driveway of the old farmhouse, it looked smaller than I remembered. The paint was peeling, the porch sagging. And there he was, sitting in a chair by the window, thinner than I'd ever seen him, but with eyes that lit up the second they met mine. For a moment, I was a child again, standing in the doorway, waiting for his nod of approval. We didn't speak right away. He reached for my hand, and I let him. His grip was weak but steady. The silence between us wasn't heavy anymore. It was full of everything we had left unsaid, full of everything we still could say. I finally whispered, "Dad," and his eyes filled with tears. We talked until the sun rose. About the fights, yes. About the pride that had poisoned us both. But also about the things that had been good, the things worth remembering. He told me he had kept a shoebox of my old letters from college, even though I had stopped writing. He confessed he read them over and over, like a lifeline. At one point, he handed me a worn photo from his pocket. It was me at 12, standing in front of the treehouse he had built. On the back, in faded ink, he had written, "For the boy I'm proud of, even if I never say it." My throat tightened. For 20 years, I had convinced myself he didn't care, yet here was proof that he had, quietly, stubbornly, in his own flawed way. The days that followed were gentle. I cooked for him, sat by his bed, read aloud when he was too tired to keep his eyes open. We didn't fix everything. How could we? But forgiveness is not erasing the past. It is choosing to carry it differently. And in those days, I carried it lighter, with love instead of anger. On his last morning, he squeezed my hand and said, "Thank you for coming home, son." His voice was soft, almost a whisper, but I heard every syllable. And then, as the light filtered through the thin curtains, he was gone. The silence that followed was different this time. It wasn't the silence of absence, but the silence of peace. After the funeral, I stood again at the treehouse, now worn and weathered, but still standing. I placed the photograph inside, like a letter sent back through time. For the first time in years, I didn't feel the canyon between us. I felt a bridge, fragile but real, stretching across years of anger, anchored by love. The letter still rests on my nightstand to this day. Sometimes I read it again, when life feels too heavy, when old bitterness tries to creep back in. It reminds me that pride only steals time, while forgiveness gives it back. And I realize how fortunate I am. Fortunate that I came back in time. Fortunate that I was able to make things right before it was too late. If I had waited any longer, all I would have left is a regret that could never be erased. That's why I want to say to anyone hearing this story, cherish every moment with your loved ones. Open your heart, let go of doubts and meaningless anger, because time waits for no one.
And it whispers the lesson my father left me with his final words. Don't wait to love. Don't wait to forgive. Because one day, tomorrow,